Hello, Liberty View. This is Mrs. Thomas. And to kind of bring an end to some of our fun days we've been celebrating in April, this week we are going to hit on 2 days and then a month-long celebration. So we're going to start with April 22nd being Earth Day. And to get started with Earth Day, I am going to read aloud to you today Wangari's Trees of Peace. This is a true story from Africa. So this is written by Jeanette Winter, and this is a nonfiction book because it is a true story, and this actually happened. It says, "The earth was naked. For me, the mission was to try to cover it with green." Wangari Maathai. Wangari lives under an umbrella of green trees in the shadow of Mount Kenya in Africa. She watches the birds in the forest where she and her mother go out to gather firewood for cooking. And she helps harvest the sweet potatoes, sugarcane, and maize from the rich soil. Wangari shines in school, and when she grows tall like the trees in the forest, she wins a scholarship to study in America. 6 years later, her studies are over. Wangari returns to her Kenyan home and sees a change. What has happened? She wonders. Where are the trees? And you'll see here in the picture. And then here's a picture clue for you. Wangari sees women bent from hauling firewood miles and miles from home. She sees barren land where no crops grow. And where are the birds? Thousands of trees have been cut down to make room for buildings, but no one planted new trees to take their place. You see what she's thinking, how her city's going to look. Will all of Kenya become a desert? She wonders as her tears fall. Wangari thinks about the barren land. I can begin to replace some of the lost trees here in my own backyard, one tree at a time. She starts by planting 9 seedlings. Watching the seedlings take root gives Wangari the idea to plant more, to start a farm for baby trees, a nursery. In an open space, she plants row after row of the tiny trees. Next, Wangari convinces the village women that planting trees is a good thing. She gives each one a seedling. Our lives will be better when we have trees again. You'll see, we are planting the seeds of hope, she said. The women spread out over their village, planting tiny trees in long rows, like a green belt stretching over the land. The government men laugh. Women can't do this, they say. It takes trained foresters to plant trees. The women ignore the laughter and they keep planting. Wangari pays them a small amount for each seedling still living after 3 months, their first earnings ever. World travels like wind rustling through the leaves about the green returning to the Wangari's village. Soon, other women in other villages and towns and cities in Kenya are planting long rows of seedlings too. But the cutting continues. Wangari stands tall as an oak to protect the old trees still remaining. We need a park more than we need a new office tower, she said. The government men disagree. Wangari blocks their way, so they hit her with their clubs. They call her a troublemaker and they put her in jail. And still she stands tall. Right is right, even if you're alone. But Wangari is not alone. Talk of the trees spread all over Africa like ripples in Lake Victoria. More women hear the talk and plant even more seedlings in longer rows and longer rows. The seedlings take root and grow tall until there are over 30 million trees where there were none. The umbrella of green in Kenya returns. Women walk tall, their backs straight. For now, they can gather firewood closer to home. The land is no longer barren. Sweet potatoes, sugarcane, and maize grow again in the rich red earth. The whole world hears of Wangari's trees and her army of women who planted them. And if you were to climb to the very top of Mount Kenya today, you would see the millions of trees growing below you and the green Wangari brought back to Africa. And then this is an author's note. that talks even more about Wangari, in that she was born in 1940 in a small village in Kenya. And we know that Kenya is a desert, but it's an area that is really rich in good soil and that you can grow a lot of crops in. And when she came to America, she earned a couple of degrees, and then she went back to become the first woman to earn a PhD, the first woman from East Africa. And so she went back and was very successful. So she also started Green Belt Movement Kenya in 1977 on World Environment Day. And that was when she planted those first 9 seedlings in her backyard. So amazing story. She was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 2004 because of her contribution to world peace through the Green Belt Movement. And in Africa tradition, a tree is planted for a symbol of peace. So it's so fitting that she won the Peace Prize after planting all those trees. Okay, April, or let's do this first. I have some nonfiction books I grabbed for Earth Day. This is a fun 10 things I can do to help my world. And it's just a great, pretty easy nonfiction. And then we have a true book. This is recycling. So this shows you how to reduce, reuse, and recycle. Okay, so that's a great nonfiction book if you're interested in placing a hold in that. And then this is a newer one we have, I Can Reuse and Recycle. And this has some great information about how you can reuse plastic and cans and recycle things. Okay, so those are some great nonfiction books for you if you're interested. Okay, April 25th is DNA Day. And DNA is what makes us all up and how we all look different. DNA is what determines what color eyes you have, what color hair you have. It's those things that determine it. And so that's why sometimes if you have a brother and a sister, they might have, or 2 sisters or 2 brothers, they might have different colored eyes than each other because they have different DNA. Every single person is made up of different DNA. And so this is a book about Gregor Mendel, the friar who grew peas. This is by Cheryl Bardo and illustrated by Josh A. Smith. And this is also a true story. This is a biography, but it falls into nonfiction, which is a true story. All his life, Gregor Mendel hungered for knowledge. Born in 1822 in a country that's now called the Czech Republic, Gregor grew up in a village with 71 houses, only 479 people, 41 horses, and 98 cows. His father was a hardworking farmer who hoped his only son would follow in his footsteps. Over time, the people of Gregor's village had learned that growing 2 kinds of apple trees together could produce better fruit, and that breeding 2 kinds of sheep together could yield thicker wool. Gregor longed to know why. How? He yearned to unlock nature's secrets and to share them with everyone. Gregor wanted more knowledge than the village grammar school could provide. His next level of school was a half day's journey away. To attend, he would have to eat and sleep there. His parents scraped together every cent they could, but they could only afford to pay for the classes, a bed, and half of Gregor's meals. 12-year-old Gregor went anyways. He chose to feed his mind and go without food to fill his grumbling belly. At school, he feasted on his lessons. Tragically, in 1838, Gregor's father broke his back and could no longer work in the fields. Gregor later wrote an essay in his life that said, "The scholar, then 16 years of age, was unfortunately compelled to fend for himself." Enterprising Gregor, by working as a tutor, paid for his own way through 4 more years of school. Even when he was sick, Gregor never fell behind in his lessons. As he neared graduation, he worried he could not find enough tutoring jobs to put food on the table next to his books. He feared that his growling stomach at last would halt his studies. It had become impossible to continue such strenuous exertions, he wrote. I needed to be spared perpetual anxiety about a means of livelihood. So he was so much wanting to learn more and stay in school. He did tutoring jobs and he would go without food and things to, save his money. Gregor's problems were solved when he became a friar. At the Abbey of St. Thomas in a town called Brno, Gregor could fill his body, mind, and soul. His fellow priors preached sermons, cared for the sick, taught school, and were respected community leaders. They were also mathematicians, botanists, philosophers, and geologists. They studied in a library where 30,000 books lined the walls. They discussed ideas over 3 plentiful meals each day. Surrounded by great thinkers, Gregor plunged into further studies. He became addicted to nature. He later wrote, I would shrink from no excursions which might help me to fill the gaps in my information. So he was desperate to learn everything he could. The abbot, the head of the abbey, rewarded Gregor's zeal. He sent the young friar to the University of Vienna to study with some of the world's best scientists. There, Gregor learned that all of nature's miracles can be explained in a few simple rules called universal laws. Universal laws explain that some things will always act in the same way, even in different settings. For example, the universal law of gravity tells us how things move through space, explaining why an apple will always fall toward the earth, whether it's dropped from a tree or from the tallest church spire. Greg learned how to test such laws with carefully planned experiments. When Gregor returned to the abbot asked him to teach science at a nearby school. The students liked Gregor's clear explanations and lively sense of humor. He could make any intellectual food nutritious and tasty, a student once said. Gregor liked nourishing young minds, but he still hungered to make a great discovery himself. He focused his attention on one of the hottest scientific questions of his time. How do mothers and fathers, whether they are apple trees, sheep, or humans, pass down traits to their children? In Gregor's day, no one knew why a child might have a father's blue eyes and straight hair, while her brother might have their mother's brown eyes and curly hair. Features such as brown eyes and curly hair are called traits. Gregor believed that all plants and animals pass down traits from parents to children in the same way. By finding a pattern for how this occurs in one life form, he hoped to crack the code for all living things. Gregor read how earlier scientists had paired different species or kinds of plants to see what their offspring or children would be like. The offspring of such matches are called hybrids. By pairing different types of corn, flowers, and wheat, earlier scientists bred many hybrids but studied only a few of them. Gregor had something else in mind. He would breed thousands of offsprings from just a few pairings. He could count how often specific traits appeared, and he would see if the math would help him find a pattern. If all went well, he would have a universal law to apply to all things. And you can see how this plant, these two, make this, which is a hybrid. It has different features and traits from each of the parent. Gregor knew he must choose plants for the experiment carefully. He studied 34 kinds of peas in his garden. At first, the plants looked so different, Gregor wondered how he'd ever decide which specific traits to track. He looked more closely and noticed that all of the peas, which are peas plant seeds, were either yellow or green. Gregor liked these traits because they were clearly distinct. Similarly, some peas were smooth and some were wrinkled. Gregor picked 7 pairs of contrasting traits such as these to test in his experiment. He planned to breed each pair and record how often each trait appeared in their offspring. Before beginning the test, Gregor grew his plants again and again to be sure each kind of pea always produced offspring with the same trait. He wanted to be sure that any changes in their offspring were caused by his experiment. After 2 years of preparation, Gregor was eager to start breeding his plants to make hybrids. He knew that pea plants usually form seeds when pollen from one part of the flower fertilizes egg cells from another part of the same flower. To create his hybrids, he would need to meddle with nature's process. And we know usually bees and insects do the pollinating, right? So guess what? Gregor had to do the pollinating himself. And he did it like this. He used tweezers to pull open the inner petals of a flower on a yellow pea plant. He snipped away the flower stamen so it could no longer make pollen. Then he brushed the egg cells in that same flower's pistil with pollen from a green pea plant. When he was done, he tied a tiny sack around the flower to prevent another plant's pollen from drifting in on a breeze or the legs of a bee or a butterfly. This way, he was positive that no other plant had pollinated the flower. Step by step, Gregor pollinated 287 flowers by hand, working his way through the 7 pairs of traits. smooth peas and wrinkled peas, yellow pea pods and green pea pods, smooth pea pods and bumpy pea pods, and so on. His fingers moved carefully as a mistake might spoil his results. Then Gregor waited. He would not remove the sacks until the flowers had been replaced by pea pods filled with seeds. He nurtured the plants and joked that they were like his children. Fall finally came. Gregor eagerly split open the newly ripened pea pods, and what did he find? And you see here, this is the parts of a pea flower. The yellow pea plants bred with the green pea plants, and they had yielded all yellow peas. When he bred smooth peas with wrinkled peas, he got all smooth peas. Gregor observed that in each of the 7 pairs of traits, all of the hybrid children looked just like one of the parents. Were the lost traits gone forever? What would the grandchildren and great-grandchildren look like? Gregor pondered these questions throughout the snowy winter. Come spring, he planted the seeds of the hybrids that he had bred. This time, he allowed nature to take its course, and he let the flowers fertilize themselves. He waited and watched. At harvest time, he opened them up. And then he saw that he had a new generation of seeds. He realized that all the plants grown from green peas sprouted pods that were filled with only green peas. Some of the plants from yellow sprouted pods with yellow peas, but most of the grown yellow peas sprouted pods with both yellow and green peas. Okay, so you see the difference. So this, okay, this was one and this was one, and they would produce all yellow. But then this would produce maybe some green, maybe some yellow, and some mix. He concluded that every pea plant has the 2 building blocks necessary to create any one trait. Today, these blocks are called genes. For every trait, the mother and the father plants each give 1 gene to their children. And then this is where he started to label with a dominant or a recessive gene. He grew close to 28,000 pea plants and tested his theory in smaller trials on 14 other kinds of plants. His hunger for knowledge led to a great discovery, and it was time to tell the world. In 1865, he presented his findings to the Brno Natural History Society, and a year later, he published them in a scientific journal. No one paid any attention. No one really understood that his discovery was about much more than peas. They didn't realize they could connect these experiments with apple trees, sheep, or people. Genes were too tiny to be seen by microscopes available in his day. Gregor lost his appetite for plant experiments and had been elected abbot, and the new duties absorbed his time. However, he did not surrender his faith in his theory. He told his friends, "My time will come." In 1884, after a long illness, Gregor died at the age of 63. The entire town mourned the passing of a beloved teacher and community leader. In 1900, 3 different scientists in 3 different countries stumbled onto the paper that Gregor had published in 1865. Each was on the verge of repeating Gregor's discovery. Each was stunned at the foresight of this unknown friar. Although he received no glory during his lifetime, Gregor is now known as the first geneticist. His discoveries are called Mendel's laws, and today we use genetics to prevent and cure diseases, make crops hardier, solve crimes, and learn more about nature's ways. More than a century after his death, Gregor's discoveries continue to fuel new insights about our world. The dream that he's had written about as a youth has come true. May the might of destiny grant me the supreme ecstasy of earthly joy, the highest goal of earthly ecstasy, that of seeing, when I rise from the tomb, my earth thriving peacefully among those who are to come after me. And then there's an author's note with more on that. There he is doing his pea experiments. Okay, the last thing I want to focus on today is April is National Poetry Month. So I have a few poems I'm going to read to you. This is a great one. This is Poem in Your Pocket. And this you can borrow or check out. And this is about some kids at school who are going to write some poetry, and then it goes with keeping a poem in your pocket. I'm going to read to you today All Because You Matter by Tammy Charles, illustrated by Brian Collier. They say that matter is all things that make up the universe, energy, stars, space. If that's the case, then you, dear child, matter. I love these illustrations. Long before you took your place in this world, you were dreamed of like a knapsack full of wishes carried on the backs of your ancestors as they created empires, pyramids, and legacies. Building, inventing, working beneath red hot suns and cold blue moons, thinking of you years ahead because to them you always mattered. On the night you were born, stars sprayed across the sky, each one full of light, hope, love, and all the moments in your life that would ever matter. Like your first steps, bare feet planted on cold floor, hobbling, wobbling, toppling, only to stand and try again. Or your first words spoken almost like a lullaby, notes climbing a ladder to the sky, Mama, Papa, Mahaketa. Or the first time you opened a book like a mirror staring back at you and really saw yourself. Same hair, same skin, same dreams. The words and pictures coming together like sweet jam on toast, musica blasting through barrios, sun in the blue sky, all because you matter. But in galaxies far away, it may seem that light does not always reach lonely planets, covered moons, stars unseen, as if matter no longer exists. And just like moons hidden in the dark, there will be times when you too will question your place in the universe, like the time you'll hear the teacher call your name, Hosam, Uzokma, Jordanus, and the whispers and giggles begin, followed by, what kind of name is that? Or the time you'll see a letter, big, bold, red on the page, and you will question if you and your work and your effort matter. Or the time when your pop-pop turns on the news and you see people everywhere take a breath, take a stand, take a knee. And you hear Pop Pop's whispered prayers as another name is called, Trayvon, Tamir, Philando, and you wonder if they or you will ever matter. But did you know that you do? Did you know that you were born from queens, chiefs, legends? Did you know that you are the earth, the strength, power, and beauty lie within you? Did you know that you are the sun rays, calm like ocean waves, tough like Montana's magic, and stars in space? And on the day the universe was created, you were thought of, dreamed of, carried like a knapsack full of wishes, as planets, stars, moons took their places, making room for you, your people, their dreams, your future, all because since the beginning of time, you mattered, they mattered, we matter, and always will. And then there's an author and an illustrator's note. And I know I book talked this book earlier this year, Can I Touch Your Hair? This is a brand new book that was up for a William Allen White Award. It's poems of race, mistakes, and friendship. And it talks about the differences in two students that are in class together, paired up in a project together, and it's all done in poems. If you are looking for a fiction chapter book that is all poetry, we have chapter fiction books that are written as poems. So if you are a third, fourth, or fifth grader, we could definitely get you some of those. There might be a couple for some second graders. This is Do Buses Eat Kids? Poems about school. It's a birthday book. And you'll see there's all kinds of different books or different poems in here. Okay. Do Buses Eat Kids? Hulking monster, huge machine, yellow jacket, gleaming clean. Mirrors, metal, buttons, lights, not sure if it plays or bites. Slides up closer, grins real wide. Ask me if I want a ride. And then this is TikTok. Tick tock, watch the clock, minute master of the day. Tick tock, bossy clock, always says we have to stay. Tick tock, slow clock, can't you move a faster way? Tick tock, please clock, tell us that it's time to play. And then there's just some other fun ones. We have a whole section on poetry. So when you're in the library checking out books, if you would like to get some poetry books for the month of April as Poetry Month, we can show you where those are. Okay, one more. Oh, did you need that homework? I've crunched your numbers, torn them up, 'cause I'm a homework chomping pup. Thanks for leaving out your pack. Your problems made a tasty snack. Do them over, such a shame, but I'm just too cute to blame. Okay, but we have lots and lots of books about poetry. So if you are interested in any of those, April is National Poetry Month. Just let us know and we will help you find those. April 22nd is Earth Day and April 25th is DNA Day. You guys have a great day and enjoy your books you check out.